Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show, where you're going to get all your NBA news without the hot takes. We're not going to be screaming in our cameras or anything like that. Well, unless maybe we talk Lakers and Celtics or something. But otherwise, you're going to get all your NBA news as unbiased as we can bring it to you and hot take free. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane. Make sure you are subscribing right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel or the NBA Front Office podcast feed over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, depending on whether you're watching or listening to this right now. Joining me as always is Keith Smith. Keith, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. Yeah, you go hot take on the prediction episode.
That's right.
We're going to start our predictions today. We're going to do our standings predictions, our playoff predictions, and our NBA Finals predictions. We'll do individual awards probably tomorrow, and then Monday. Our plan is Monday we'll catch up with all the news as far as all the waivers and cuts and all that as teams get into regular season roster compliance. The vast majority of that will go down over the next few days, really through Saturday at 5 p.m. is the kind of unofficial drop dead time, but it could drag into Monday for a couple teams, but Saturday, unless you want to have some guaranteed money on the books for guys you wouldn't have otherwise, you got to waive them by Saturday. But today's all about seeing how silly we look 6 or so months from now when the season wraps up.
Yeah, invariably, we're going to be wrong on at least some of these, but nonetheless, it's always a fun exercise to make predictions here on how things are going to play out. There's a reason why you actually play the games, of course, because you never know. Look, like last year, I'm pretty sure both of us had the Memphis Grizzlies on the outside looking in, and then they had one of the best seasons in the league, and we're an inspiring team and a lot of fun. So you never know what's going to happen once the ball is actually on the floor. But this is just us taking what we know as of this moment, and information will change as the season starts up. But making some predictions based on what we know right now. Keith, why don't we kick things off? Let's go Eastern Conference first, and let's dive into that one. Both conferences really are interesting here. So it's going to be a lot of fun to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of how I like to think through this, just to break down my logic on this, is I like to think in terms of tiers, and that's kind of how I put the teams. And then I start going through and I take a stab at their records and things like that, and then make sure my math works. So I have only 1,230 games in there and all that good stuff, because that's how many games are in an NBA regular season. But so what I think we'll do here, if you're in agreement, we'll each run through our top 6 in the East here to start. So that's the assured playoff teams. Then we'll do the play-in teams, and then we'll talk the teams at the bottom. So in order for me, call me a homer if you want. I have the Celtics at the top of the conference. I think Ime Udoka being gone is one thing, but I think Malcolm Brogdon being in, whole bigger thing. More important, it means a heck of a lot more. But that doesn't mean I necessarily think that they're far and away. I have Philadelphia second. I have Milwaukee third. I think those 3 teams are on very equal footing.
Yeah.
I just think the Bucks are at a point in their kind of franchise arc here where the regular season doesn't really mean all that much to them. I think those 3 teams kind of set themselves apart. Then have the Nets in a tier of their own. The Nets are the team that could make you look really dumb both ways.
Yeah.
It could be 4th in the conference, could be too low, or it could be way too high. I feel like I'm going to be wrong on that one way or the other, depending on who shows up and who plays. And then my last 2 assured playoff teams, I have Miami and Toronto. I wanted to pick Cleveland or Atlanta. We'll get into them in a minute. But I had Miami, Toronto. I just can't go against the, kind of known factors, the coaching and all that stuff. So in order for me, top 6, Boston, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Brooklyn, Miami, Toronto.
Okay. All right. Pretty good ranking there. I agree with you on the top 3, not in terms of order, but just in that of those 3, 76ers, Bucks, Celtics, whichever team you want to say is the first out of that group. Okay. I can fully buy it. I can see it. No argument for me. The way I have it ranked, I just looked at it in terms of who's going to have the biggest chip on their shoulder, who's going to have the most to prove this season. I think the Bucks being a recent title-winning team, the Celtics being in the finals last year, both those teams have a very good understanding of what it takes in order to get to the finals, and the fact that this is a marathon, not a sprint. So I have the 76ers pushing down on the gas pedal the most during the regular season. Again, not saying they are of a different quality than those other teams, just who do I think is going to go the hardest during the regular season? And so I've got the 76ers at the top of the list, followed by the Bucks, followed by the Celtics. But again, you can mix and match that however you want, and you'll get no argument from me there. Finishing out that tier, though, I have the Miami Heat, the Cavs. I'm giving them some credit for jumping up a bit here. And I've got the Brooklyn Nets. Again, the Nets are the one team where if when the dust all settles, if they were the number one team in the conference, I would say, okay, I could see that path. Or if they were a play-in team, I would say, okay, yeah, I could see that happen as well. They have the widest range of outcomes here, but that's the way I've got my top six.
All right, let's hear your play-in teams, and then I'll give you mine.
Play-in teams. So I have the Raptors, which very nearly, I know you had them in your top tier. We're right there. I've got the Hawks, I've got the Bulls, and I've got the New York Knicks making their way into the play-in. Again, to me, I feel like the Raptors and perhaps the Hawks are the kind of are where I draw the line in that group. I think they're of a different quality than the Bulls and the Knicks. The Bulls, part of that being injury related this season.
Yeah, and I think that's totally fair. So I've got Cleveland, and just to give everybody a sense, I've got Cleveland only a couple wins behind Miami, who I have in fifth, and I have Cleveland in seventh. I have Chicago in eighth, and I might still be a little high on them there. I don't feel super comfortable about that one. I do think they're going to be down in the play-in, along with then Atlanta, and then I have New York, same as you. I have those teams down in the play-in tournament. So our top 10, slight difference in order, but we've got the same 10 teams making the postseason there. So then that would put what for me, I would have Cleveland versus Chicago in the 7-8 game, and Atlanta hosting New York in the 9-10 playing game.
And the way I have it, it would be Raptors and Hawks, and then Bulls and Knicks. Again, though, you can mix and match those teams quite a bit.
Yep, absolutely. Now, bottom of the Eastern Conference. I have a pretty clear delineation. So just in terms of wins, I have the Knicks getting to 500 and being the final team in the play-in.
Okay.
And then I have the Wizards next in 11th, and I have them 6 games behind. I think we're not going to have a race to that 10th seed, because I think what's going to happen is you're going to see teams say, all right, we're out. We are out. We're going to be doing everything to get to the bottom here as much as we can. And I just don't trust the Wizards to stay healthy. I think, if we were talking, in April and it's like, man, the Wizards made the play-in, I wouldn't be shocked. I think they've got the talent. I just don't trust them to stay healthy. Then I've got Detroit and Orlando next. I think they're going to be what I like to call naturally bad teams. Like they're not necessarily trying to be bad. Now they may be down the stretch, but I just think they're young. They're not quite ready yet. I have Charlotte. I pushed Charlotte down after the LaMelo injury. I just don't think they're going to do much trying to win this year. So I pushed them down to 14th, and they have Indiana 15th. And I think the Pacers are, there's a chance that they finished, so you could really kind of mix up Orlando, Charlotte, and Indiana probably in any order you want. Maybe throw Detroit in that mix. I think they're maybe a step ahead of those teams, but I just put Indiana at the bottom just because I think Indiana is going to be full on in, hey, let's try to go get a star to pair with Tyrese Halliburton mode by the time we hit the trade deadline and later. And that might be one where it's oh yeah, Tyrese Halliburton's having back spasms that keep him out for 4 weeks or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Yep. I could definitely see. I think we're going to see a lot of those kind of shenanigans around the NBA, particularly with what we've already seen out of Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson. I pretty much mimic you here, Keith. I've got in my bottom tier here, I've got the Wizards, the Pistons, and in this order, the Wizards, the Pistons. I've got the Magic, the Hornets, and the Pacers. And again, I'm kind of buying into that premise that you and I discussed, I believe it was yesterday with the Hornets, maybe the day before, about now that LaMelo Ball is injured, them potentially seeing this as an opportunity to bottom out, trading off pieces. I also have the Pacers at some point moving on from Miles Turner, maybe Buddy Hield as well. I think there's a lot of incentive if they're not certain that Turner is going to re-sign for them to go ahead and move him. So I think they're going to make those moves, which is only going to further their tanking experiment here. So that's the way I've got the bottom of the conference.
What's funny is usually, right, we've done this a few years now, and usually this is where the fans start hammering us. And I think their fans are like, you were too high on
Yep,
us.
that's
We should
right.
be lower. A couple of those teams. So that's kind of funny. All right, we'll let you lead us off in the Western Conference. I just assume you can lead us off with the Lakers at the top of the conference without a doubt.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Lakers are clearly the dominant presence in the West. There's no question there. No, look, I'm gonna go with the complete opposite, and I've got the Clippers at the top of
All
the Western
right.
Conference. So
Oh man.
let me give you let me see, my top
You need to
six.
cover all the Lakers stuff behind you now, like the Clippers do, but whatever it's called now, the crypt or whatever we're calling it.
Keith, you know what this is, right? It's
Reverse jinx
there
time.
it is.
Yeah.
There it is. That's what we're doing here. That's what
Yep.
no, I mean, look, really, when I look at this roster, and I know they've had injury concerns, but when I look at this roster, I think they have the depth to manage
Agreed.
periods of not having Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. I think they're arguably the deepest roster in the league, particularly when I look at their wing depth, which is incredibly important in today's NBA. So I have the Clippers at the top of the conference. Again, looking at who really has the most to prove compared to some of the other teams that have kind of been there, particularly when we talk about the Warriors. So I have the Clippers at one. I have the Warriors, the Suns, the Grizzlies, the Pelicans, and then the Nuggets. With the Pelicans again making a big leap up this season. So that's my top six in the West.
All right. So we've got some differences.
Yes, I
This
had a
time
feeling
around.
we would in the
Yeah.
Western Conference.
I want to say I completely agree with your Clippers thoughts. Except I'm going to change one thing. I don't think it's arguably. I think they are the deepest team in the league. I mean, their backups
Bring
could
on
probably
that
make the
jinx.
playoffs,
That's it.
right?
Pile it on.
Yeah, yeah, pile it on. I actually would like to see them do well, myself. But yeah, I don't have them at the top of the conference. I actually have at the top of the conference the Denver Nuggets. I think
Oh,
this is the year it all comes together for them in the regular season. I also think, too, they actually have a very important home court advantage over a lot of teams. I think home court advantage in the NBA is kind of flattened out quite a bit, with the exception of maybe 5 or 6 arenas. And I think Denver's one of the best ones. You have not only the altitude factor, but they've got great crowds. Those fans they just love that team and Jokic and those guys. And
they have a
I
very
think they're
valuable mascot as well.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. Apparently, right? I know, man. I should have gone a full different direction in my life path here. But yeah, I just think it all comes together. I've got them at the top of the conference. I have the Clippers right behind them. And then I have Phoenix, and then I have Golden State. And that's kind of my tier break.
Mhm.
I just think Golden State knows they don't need to push super hard in the regular season. They're fine. Get home court advantage in the first round. You're good. I think Phoenix has probably hit that point too. Both of those two teams obviously have some questions to answer about just the way things have gone. Let's say from the start of the summer through the last week or so. So there's some things there. My next two teams making it in, I moved Minnesota up here. I think
Mhm.
Minnesota is going to be a really, really good regular season team. And then, man, I looked at it way longer than I should admit that I looked at this grouping from Minnesota at 5 through New Orleans at 8. I had Minnesota, Dallas, Memphis, and New Orleans. I went back and forth a bunch. I'm going to go with Dallas just from the Luca factor alone. I think Luca's good enough himself
Mhm.
to drag that team into the top 6. And since I kind of stepped on it a little bit, I'll go into my play-in teams here. Memphis and New Orleans, but right behind Minnesota and Dallas. I have from Minnesota at 48 wins, and I have New Orleans at 45. So that's about as close as you can get in terms of wins from 5 to 8.
Mhm.
Then I promise I'm not doing it just because you're my buddy. I have the Lakers at 9. I do think they have obviously enough to get into the play-in tournament. I'd be very disappointed if they did not. And it's also very important to remember they have no reason to tank because the Pelicans can swap picks
Right.
with them. So there's no reason for the Lakers at any point in the year to bottom things out. Then, man, I wanted to do it. I wanted to pick the Kings so bad. If Portland's got a healthy Damian Lillard, I just don't see how they miss out on at least going to the play-in tournament. So I have Portland as the 10th team and making the play-in.
So, all right, on your bit about the Nuggets, so I have to admit the Nuggets were in consideration to be my top team, and as I went through things, they kept getting pushed down because
Yeah,
I have this feeling that given what they've went through injury wise, they're going to be a little bit gun shy
they
about
could
playing like
be.
second night of back to back. So
Sure.
that's why they kept dropping. And I just the more I look at it, the higher I get on the Pelicans. So they kept jumping up and pushing other
Yep.
anyway. But like if you told me the Nuggets win the Western Conference, again, wouldn't be surprised. Anybody in that top five or top six, if they were to finish the season number one in the West, I would say, yep, that could definitely be accurate. My
Let me give you one couple things too, because I think
yeah,
Memphis and New Orleans fans might be like, "Hey, you're kind of low on us." Memphis, I think, without Jaren Jackson Jr. to start the year, I'm a little bit worried
yeah,
about what that looks like. I think too, they could be a team that plays really almost just as well as they did a year ago, but just the strength of the conference costs them a
true.
handful of wins, so they slide. And then New Orleans, I guess I'm kind of in. I just kind of want to see it all come together on the court. There's just a lot of moving parts there that haven't played together very much. So I just want to see it. I hope it's in the mix. But I mean, you're like you said. I mean, I just have them just behind chasing teams right that are in the assured thing. So just any order there, kind of put it in a hat, pull it out, and I'm probably going to say sure. I'm not going to argue that very much. But sorry to step on you. Go into your playing teams.
No. You're fine there. So my playing teams, I've got the Wolves, I've got my Lakers, my homer pick there. I've got the Mavs, and again, like the Mavs could be in the top tier, and it would be the West is ridiculous this year. Like
Yeah.
most years, it was last year that the West was like super forgiving. The Lakers said, "Whatever, no, thank you, we're not interested." But the last year, the West was super forgiving. There were so many injuries. This year, I've got the West getting back on track and just being absolutely brutal again. So I've got the Mavs um, sitting third in this tier. I can't say for sure that's where they're going to. Luka is absolutely brilliant. He's one of my MVP candidates, and that's been part of my
Hmm.
struggle. Can I give him the MVP and then say, here they're going
You're
to
in
be
the play-in.
sitting in the nine seed in the
Yeah.
play-in? Like that's difficult. I just think the loss of Jalen Brunson is going to matter. I think Spencer Dinwiddie can mitigate it to a degree,
Hmm.
but I've got the Mavs sitting there. I did go ahead and bump up the Kings. I'm a little concerned about Lillard. He did suffer an injury last year. Didn't quite look like himself. There's talk about, well, is the injury repaired? Is he, back to if he's back to truly being himself, then the Blazers probably get this spot. If he's not, though, I'm kind of high on that. It's weird, but I'm high on the Kings.
I like
I
them
like what we've
too.
seen out of Keegan Murray. I
Mhm.
think they could be a threat to get into this play-in tournament. So I've got them there as the last team in that tier for me.
It would also be the absolute most Kings thing ever that in a year where there are two incredible players
Right.
for them to make the play in and then not end up with one of the great players, right?
That's a
Like that
good point.
that would be the most Kings thing ever. So all right, so you flip flop Portland and Sacramento. I think
Uh-huh.
in just again in terms of because I did do win predictions. I have Portland at 39 wins. I have Sacramento at 38. So I've got them right
They're right
right
there.
next to each other there. And, that's probably just a matter. Now, Houston, I'm going to put Houston in the Detroit Orlando bucket where I think they're just going to be naturally bad because they're so young. They're not ready to win yet. Then OKC, Utah, San Antonio. I think Utah, by the time it really starts to matter, Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, Rudy Gay, handful of those guys. They're either not going to be playing or they're going to be off that team. So I think they're going to they might be a team that starts something like 10-8, and then all of a sudden it's like maybe they'll be a little frisky, and then all of a sudden it's like none of these guys are playing anymore, and now
Last
they're
year,
you know
it was for a different reason, but like the Wizards last year at one point were the
yes,
one seed in the East, and then
yeah.
suddenly they're just nosedive.
Yeah, yeah. And then OKC, I mean, Chat's out for the year. We already know SGA starting the season hurt. We've already seen they'll pivot very, very quickly into saying, nope, let's just bottom out. Spurs, I mean, Pop openly kind of said it as much as he could there. So I've got those four teams at the bottom, and I've got them with some of the worst records. Just since we're here, my top three in the lottery, then just by my record
Oh, okay.
predictions, would be San Antonio, Utah, and Indiana. Would have the flattened 14% odds at Victor Wembanyama.
So I've got at the bottom, my bottom tier, I've got the Blazers again. Damian Lillard's health is the big question mark there, and what level he can play on. The Rockets, I think they are trying to win. Like the players are going to try to win. They're going to do everything they can there. I've got OKC, particularly without Holmgren. Utah, I agree with you. I think they're going to part ways with some of these veteran guys. They're going to do what they can to bottom out. And then I'll take Pop's advice as well on the Spurs. I'm putting them bottom of the conference. I'm
Don't
not
bet
going to
on the
argue
Spurs.
with when you've got the coach saying don't bet on us. I'm going
Exactly.
to listen in that case. So that's the bottom of my conference. I really
Perfect.
think it's going to be an insanely tight tank.
Mhm.
Like 1 or 2 wins could separate. And it's weird because normally we think of losses, but 1 or 2 wins is going to separate the bottom teams where fan bases are going to be looking back and being like, man, we could have X% more better chance of winning it
Yep.
if we just hadn't won that game. Come
Yeah,
on,
why
guys.
did we win that game on
Yep,
Tuesday night
exactly.
in, Utah? Like, what were we thinking? Yeah, exactly. I think the people who hate tanking are going to be absolutely disgusted this year, especially post Christmas. I think you're going to have teams full on. We're bottom. We're out. Starting right around then, it might be all right. Once a week in a home game, you'll get the regular guys to appease the home fans, and then after that, we're going. We're not going to go through our full round by round playoff stuff here, but we will give you our East finals, our West finals, and our NBA finals. For me in the East finals, I'm going with. So remember, I had Boston, Philly,
Uh-huh.
Milwaukee as my top three. I'm going to go with Boston and Milwaukee. Philly's got to prove it to me. James Harden's got to prove it to me. They got to prove that they can get Joel Embiid all the way there before I pick them to get out of the second round. So I'm going to go with Boston and Milwaukee. I think by the time it all really matters, they'll be the two best teams in the conference.
I also have Boston and Milwaukee making it through. The 76ers, I think, will have something to say about that, but I have Boston, Milwaukee as the best teams in the conference. Did you say who you had making it through there?
I didn't yet. I was going to wait, and then we'd say our finals
Okay,
on our
got
pick.
it, got it. So I have Boston and Milwaukee. To jump over to the West, I'm going. I'm going to stick with the Golden State Warriors. I'm going to say they make it through again. They've proven for so many years now that when they're healthy, they are one of the best teams. And I'm going to say the Clippers are there to meet them in the Western Conference Finals. We will see if they can break that Clippers curse though and not fall to pieces come playoff time.
And I know that hurt. I know
Oh, it
that
absolutely
hurts, right?
did. Like I said, we could, and this is the stuff of nightmares for Lakers fans. We could be looking at a Clippers Celtics NBA Finals this year, and then there's just no reason to watch. There's no way to watch that. There's no positive outcome from a Lakers fan's perspective.
Right at that point, you're just hoping the league's like, hey, we need to cancel the finals for some reason,
Just
right?
hope somebody pulls the plug, kicks the cord out of the wall, something.
Exactly. My West finals. So I also have the Clippers there, and I have the Nuggets there. I
Okay.
believe in this Denver team. I think their additions of Bruce Brown and Contavious Caldwell Pope clean up their perimeter wing defense. They obviously can score the crap out of the ball with Jokic and Murray and Porter. I think they've got all the necessary pieces to make a deep run. I think Zeke Naji and Bones Highland are both going to step into rotation roles as young players and really be just fine for Denver. I'm very high on this Denver team. So we've got Denver and the Clippers meeting in the finals. And Trevor, I'm promised I already had this. I can show you my document.
Oh, it's
I have a
gross.
Celtics Clippers NBA finals,
Oh, so gross.
and I'm picking the Celtics to bring home the team.
Okay. All right.
I know, right? People might be saying, that's a homer pick. Maybe it is, but they were right there
It
last
would
year.
be a homer pick if the Celtics were like the 6th seed and bowed out in the
Exactly.
first round last year.
Yeah.
It's not a homer pick when the team was in the finals last year.
That,
Nobody should give you grief about that.
and they got better. They got Malcolm
Yeah,
Brogdon, and he,
absolutely.
I try not to go too crazy over preseason, but when he's played, he's been exactly what this team needs. He moves the ball, he's steady. They had a stretch in a preseason game the other day where Marcus Smart, I don't know what he was doing. He was throwing the ball. He tried to throw an off the backboard pass in traffic in the lane. It was like he was just playing ridiculous stuff. And Joe Mazzulla instantly pulled Smart off the court, put Malcolm Brogdon in, and everything settled down. And that's exactly what they want. Those games against the Warriors where they were having 20 turnovers and throwing the ball over the gym, that's where Brogdon's going to come in. Now, he's got to get there. He's got to make it to that point of the season
Correct.
healthy. So we'll see what happens. But I think the Celtics also have enough depth at the guard position where it's all right, hey, you got a little bit of an ankle thing going on. Go sit out for a week if that's what you need. We go from there. So yeah, so I'm picking the Celtics over the Clippers. I just think when I look at it, I think they shape up to be the two teams I trust the most. But before you give your pick, I do want to say Denver, Warriors, Suns, Bucks,
Any of them.
76ers. There's a world where the Nets I could see, making it there. It is there. You could give me, all those teams. Well, I just rattled off like 8 different teams that could win it. It wouldn't surprise me. I think there's that many good quality teams. And one of the teams I didn't mention, whether it's Cleveland or Toronto or Miami or Dallas, New Orleans, one of those teams is going to be better than what we think right now. And then one of those teams I did mention is probably going to be worse, and everything's going to kind of go sideways and they'll fall apart. But I think the league is super deep in really good teams, and I think there's a ton of parity at the top right now. I don't feel if I had to put a confidence interval on Boston Clippers as the finals, it'd be like 5%.
Right,
Is what
exactly.
I'd feel like.
That's what's crazy. You think about all those years where it was just, hey, the Warriors are coming out of the West because that's just what's going to happen, right?
Yep.
And
Warriors, Cavs,
Warriors, Cavs
pencil
for
it in.
4 years.
Yep.
Like it's not.
Yep.
We're not living in that world anymore. There's so
Nope.
many different teams where you could say, like we were doing in our tiers, the 6 seed in both of our tiers, I could say, oh, that team could easily be the 1 seed, right? Like
Yeah.
there's that much parity. So I think that's going to make for an exciting season. But
Mhm.
I do have, it pains me to say, I've got the Clippers getting through to the finals again. I think that depth is going to matter. Look, it's yeah, a little bit me applying the jinx there. Who knows? Come playoff time, Clippers are going to clip. Maybe they wind up just kind of doing their typical thing and they collapse. They blow a 3-1 series lead
Can I
or
say
something
one
like that.
quick thing too?
Yeah,
Their depth doesn't matter in the playoffs if
right.
Kawhi or PG's not there.
Correct.
Then it's like that's great. Their depth is overwhelming in the regular season, but once you get to the playoffs, you got to have Kawhi and PG. They got to be able to be themselves and go every single playoff game because it's not. Then the depth is nice, but it doesn't really matter. You need the stars to be ready to play come the spring and the summer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's 100% correct because we know playoff rotations, you get down to like an 8-man rotation and your depth isn't quite as important, assuming everybody is healthy out there. And if they're not, then it doesn't matter anyway. That's just the nature
Mhm.
of superstar level play in the NBA and why those guys matter so much. But I've got the Clippers getting through in the Western Conference. And if you told me it's the Warriors, if you told me it's the Nuggets, the Suns, whoever, like I can buy it. In the East, I've got the Bucks getting through. I feel like last year the Bucks were, you could argue, were a Chris Middleton injury away from making another run
Yep.
to the finals. I felt like they were getting slept on a little bit last year, strangely, and I feel like they're going to be another tough out in the finals this year. So I have Bucks Clippers, and I have to at least give myself something to look forward to. So I've got the Bucks winning it all this year, if only to allow me to sleep a little better at night.
I love it. Yeah, it's obviously in our hearts, I think we both would love to see let's break that tie with the Celtics Lakers
Sure.
finals, right? I just don't somehow I don't think that's in the cards
Right.
this year, but we'll see if we get there. But yeah, so recap, I have Celtics over Clippers in the finals. Trevor has Bucks over Clippers in the finals. So we're both feeling the Clippers a little bit here.
Mhm.
But yeah, I really do. I think we are headed for one of the more fun and enjoyable seasons because even those bad teams are super interesting. Like it's obviously I'm very close to it living here in Orlando. They're going to be bad, but boy, they're going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
With Paulo and Franz, they're talking about playing lineups with Bamba, Carter, Paulo, and Franz all together on the
Gosh.
court. Like that's easily going to be the big. I don't care who they put in at guard. That's the biggest lineup in the league, and they're going to mess around with a lot of different stuff. The Rockets have, I mean, just so many kids that are just going to be fun to watch. The Thunder eventually, when they get, obviously won't be Chet, but some of their other guys, and then even the middle of the pack teams, there. I was trying to go through and I was trying to find a team. So a friend challenged me with, tell me one team. You're like, yeah, I'm good. I don't really want to watch them. I think the closest I got to was Chicago. I
Okay.
just, and it's not that I think Chicago's gonna be bad or anything. I think I'm just kind of like without Lonzo. But I'm still not like if Chicago's playing at 7 Eastern and there's no other game on. It's like I'm gonna be like, well, I'm not gonna watch. Like I'm gonna watch and I'll enjoy because I like Zach Levine, I like DeMar DeRozan, I like Vucevic, but Ayo Dosunmu. We're not doing news today, but named to the Bulls starting point guard.
Yeah.
The second year player played pretty good as a rookie. So yeah, even them, like I think they're probably the team I'm least excited about, but like I'm still like, yeah, no, that they'll be fine. That they'll be an enjoyable watch. So yeah, there's nobody I'm looking at and being like, yeah, I might get there with the Hornets pretty quickly. I feel like
Yeah.
maybe the Jazz, we'll
Depends on
see.
how long LaMelo is out. That
That's exactly
is
it.
a major factor in their
Yeah,
watchability.
yeah,
The Bulls, what's interesting there with that pick is that they were one of the most fun teams at the start of last season. Remember there was that first like month
yeah.
or two,
They were great.
they were a blast. They were flying up and down the floor. They were pulling off all kinds of stuff. They
Yep.
were a lot of fun, but those injuries have just really taken their toll. You
Hmm.
know, it like I think I have probably the Spurs at the bottom of my list, but
Yeah,
I know you're a big Keldon Johnson guy. The
yeah.
pop factor certainly
That's yeah.
but I don't wanna give a team credit because their coach is entertaining, you know what I mean? So, I've got the
What?
Spurs probably at the bottom of my list.
Yeah, for me with the Spurs, it'll be like checking in on like, all right, what are Josh Primo and Devin
Mhm.
Vassell doing? It's going to be kind of checking in on their kids. But yeah, it's probably a good thing that the Spurs hit in that like 8 and 8:30 window a lot here on the East Coast where there's already games going on. And I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, the Spurs are on. I'm probably not going to be watching a ton of San Antonio, even OKC at times. But then OKC does crazy stuff like they put Giddy and Poku in a million
Yep.
pick and rolls, and Poku's either finishing off a crazy thing or he's throwing the ball 30 rows, into the seats, passes that Wembenyama couldn't even catch. And it's like, all right, did he murder someone with that pass? Like, what is happening here? So
Are the
it's like,
fans
yeah.
okay?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Like that video that gets shared of the ladies looking at her phone and gets pegged in the
Oh,
head
yeah.
courtside. Yeah, be careful at OKC games. Like, they like to throw the ball in the seats, but yeah, I really do. I mean, I love this. This is my favorite thing in the world, to watch. It's my favorite form of entertainment is the NBA, but I really do think this is a great season. I think we've got a lot of individual stars stepping forward as well too. We'll probably get into a little bit of that tomorrow as we talk our awards picks, but yeah, I'm super excited for the season to come.
I really think too, when we're talking about these lower tier teams that maybe aren't gonna be that exciting, what is gonna be exciting is you watch their games and you start thinking, "If they win the lottery, they
Yeah.
put Wembanyama on the floor, what does
Yep.
that look like? How could these pieces fit with that?" And I think that's gonna be the interesting subplot throughout the entire
Mhm.
season for that tier of teams.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, we're definitely going to be monitoring that, and then all right, what if they don't get him, but they get Scoot? How does he fit in there too,
Sure.
right? And then
Yep.
then we'll I know myself, I'll fall in love with 4 or 5 other kids in the draft class too by the time we get there. And I know it's supposed to be a pretty good draft. I'll be completely honest, I don't have in depth thoughts on a lot of those other guys. I know a lot of them. I've started to look into them a little bit. I know a bunch of other guys can play, but yeah, by the time we get mid season or so, I'll start to know more about those guys. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun this year. I can't wait. We're only 5 days away from it all starting up for real.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Here we go. All right, everybody. Let us know. What do you think about our rankings? Do you agree? Do you disagree? How do you see things playing out throughout the season in both conferences? Give us your thoughts in the comment section. Again, appreciate everybody for joining us. Make sure you do subscribe. We're trying to bring that subscriber count up. So thank you guys for hitting that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications as well. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.